Today we're doing things a little bit differently. It's getting pretty hot, and yeah, summer is coming, and obviously summer in Dubai hits hard. So today we're indoors for a change. I'm sure eventually I'll be able to shoot outdoors again, but since the topic is changing, since the theme is changing, so might as well just shoot it inside for now. It's not a very fancy setup, but for what I'm here to say, it does the job. So, I have decided, instead of talking about the gear and the cameras and what I like and what I've used and what I think, I've decided to show how I shoot stuff and just break it down, at least as much as I can. Just show you guys how I see the world, how I frame, how I create compositions, and who knows, maybe one of you guys will learn something, or maybe one of you guys will teach me something. So let's do that. What I'm gonna do is I am going to create projects, and each project I'll discuss in a separate episode. And I think I've already created maybe 3 or 4 projects just for these episodes, and I think the average amount of pictures per project is around 25 pictures. I'm not sure I'll go through all of them. I'm trying this out, to be honest, but there we go. Let's give it a try. So, first things first. Let's turn on the screen recorder. Yeah, that will need. So, now that the screen recorder is finally on, this is a project that I shot while I was commissioned to shoot a boat on an isle. The boat is called Dahabeya, which means the golden, and it's basically a large sailboat that has no engine, no motor, and it accommodates around 20 people, 20 guests, and almost 20 more staff. That's how the boat looks like. And because I love black and white so much, I shot these shots while I was shooting the actual commercial shots for the marketing and for the website of the boat. So let's just go through it one by one. Now, generally, a shot like this, my main focus is the person. If you see, he's more or less center of the frame. If you see, there is one more subject here. The whole point of him and him is that you know that he's not alone. This generally is a lot of negative space. What's nice about this negative space is that it adds a lot of contrast. So you have white here, then you have short, darker shade of gray here, and then you have white with his dress, his I don't know what that's called in English, to be honest. Let's just call it a dress for now. And then there's a lot of contrast when it comes to his face. If you can see light coming from this side, and there's a little bit of shadow on this side. If you look closely, see the eyes, see the look. And again, this was just a moment. This was literally just a moment. The whole point is you showcase him, you showcase his environment, and you show that he's not alone. This is another picture. It also shows environment. So a lot of the times I like to play with middle ground, which is this person, background, which in this case is the boat, this guy, and foreground, which is this person. Here you can kind of see his expressions. You can see what he's doing with his hands, and you can see that he's helping his colleague. This person was the actual captain of the boat. And then you can see the other person talking on the phone to the tugboat, because at this point they needed to talk. There wasn't a lot of wind basically, and this was the only means of transportation. So when you look at this, the layering between what's close, what's medium, what's far, you see a lot of the basically the eye of the viewer. Let me just change the color for you guys. So it goes like this. Once you have this kind of spiral movement, you tend to linger a lot, especially that now you've already realized that it's a boat. You've already realized what they're doing. You've already realized like the mood, and then the shades. The beauty about darker skin tones is that it adds a lot of contrast. So you can see contrast here on his face, the less contrasty part versus the more contrasty part versus this. And then if you go here, even the captain's face, if you see it's more like, let me just do this, make this a little bit smaller. It's too big for the purpose. Yeah. So if you cut this down here, oh, it's still too big. And then take a look at his shadow side, and then his lit side, and then kind of like the catchlight in his eyes. This on its own is a very interesting portrait. This on its own is a very interesting portrait. And then when you look at the picture out as a whole, it is just, you're there. You can feel it. Let's go to something like this. This is a simpler composition. So if you look closely, you'll see that the sun is basically here. So this frame was backlit, and within the action, within his look, if you see where he's looking and how he's looking, within that action, there are a lot of leading lines in the frame. So if we draw this line, which goes all the way from here, and then you have another line which goes all the way from here, and then you have this line which goes all the way from here. These lines, to some extent, they create this frame, this space, and it leads to where the subject is. At the same time, you get to see the action, you get to see what he's doing. Basically, they were unfolding part of the sail. And on the other side, he had other people helping him with that. This is one of the pictures that I actually really like. It's not fair when I say that I like something that I've shot, but then, to be honest, I don't like everything that I shoot. So if there's something that I've shot that I like, that I think is an achievement. So when you look at this, I always like using leading lines. So first of all, you have this little bit of negative space, and then you have one line, and then you have this line, and then you have this line, and this line. They're all leading to the space. So this zone, this area, is basically like a small dam. The level of the Nile behind that dam is different from the one in front of the dam. So if you notice, once the boat goes in, there is a few like different levels of water, and once the boat goes in, the other side is closed, and in this location, this area is filled with water until, let me just go in red, until this level, basically. All of this is filled with water. And then the boat can emerge on the other side on a higher level. And what I like about the picture is the different space. So, let me change the color again. So, you have this space, this white space, which corresponds to this darker space, and then everything else is in the middle. It's within this zone, and it leads to that gate. And you can consider this to be negative space, and well, it is, but it's water. This also you can consider to be negative, and it is, but it's the sky, and you're basically stuck between water and sky. But the shape of the water, the shape of the sky, it creates interest. And then even when you take a look at the shades, the guy on the tugboat operating the tugboat, how he looks, the position that he's in, the tugboat itself, there are a lot of details. A lot of details. Everything here is its own story. This frame is its own story. But then the actual story is here, is in the picture. The nice thing about the photographs is that you can take your time to look at them, to embrace them, to study them, to see the details. When you're doing video, you're in a rush. You just want to see frame after frame after frame, but this, we can sit here and just look at the details. This, as commercial as it seems, it's a good representation of an inviting bedroom. The nice thing about the design of these dahabiyas, of these boats, is that it's very simple. It's very boho style. But this as a picture, it might not be my favorite, but I'll tell you what I like about it. And again, it's always the light and the lines. If you draw out the lines, if you draw out the light, I'm just gonna draw it out here. See? Shapes. Light creates shapes. And when you fill this out, when you fill out the light, it creates interest. This space. This space. This creates interest. The rest of the shot, it might not be that interesting. But if you look at this dark, shadowy space versus this bright, nice space, you can always see that light, it adds texture. And we need texture. The difference between this part and this part is very evident. Same for here. This part. Come on, Siri. Please, Siri, let me do my thing. Thank you, Siri. And then this part and this part. See details here. You can't see details here. And then even this, the placement of this. Of course, I don't need to tell you that it's crucial to make sure that your verticals are always vertical. Especially when you're shooting rooms, especially when you're shooting architecture. This is one of those images that you don't shoot a lot. And I will say the beauty of the people, their character, everything, it shows. If you see, you have one, two, come on, yeah. You have 3, 4, 5, 6 people in frame. Funny enough, you don't see them clearly. You only see 2 people clearly. This guy's a little bit out of focus. This guy's too much out of focus, and then partially. No, we don't need to forget this guy as well. And you kind of know what they're doing. It makes sense. You know how they're feeling. That also makes sense. You just look at the picture and you feel like you're there. You know they're singing. You see them all dressed in bright white color. You see the significance of this guy, of his hands, of his smile, his eyes, where he's looking, what he's concerned with. So he was steering the boat. And then the rest of the guys were just entertaining. And this is a picture. Sometimes even when it's high key, even when everything is white, like white, 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 everywhere you touch is basically white. But then because of the skin tones, because of the darker skin, you get drawn to what's dark. A lot of the time people are told that the viewer gets drawn to the bright spots, not the dark spots. But then here, because there's more bright, less dark, so you get drawn to the dark spots. You get drawn to the faces. This is a very simple representation of what a nice boat on the Nile looks like. The key here is where the sun is coming from, where it's hitting. You have clear split here between shadow and dark. Of course, to shoot this, you guide the boat. You're on a different boat. There's a lot of work that goes through to create such a picture. But regardless of that, there's this very fine, subtle line between light coming from this side and then shadow on this side, which gives texture, which makes the sail look bigger than it is. It gives it this curve to it. And then even if you look closer, this on its own, this is a shot, this is a frame. And funny enough, I just noticed this guy, he's just enjoying himself. This guy enjoying himself. No idea what these guys are doing. But yeah, this is a boat on the Nile. A lot of the times when I shoot hospitality, I create what I call service shots or staff shots, where they just walk through the space. And I think this was like when I was setting up for one of them. Again, I will say I like the light, where it's coming from, it's very directional. Shadow that it's casting here and here. The man seems to be passing through, but the man does add interest to the shot. This shot without the man, it's a shot of some sunbeds. But now you know what's happening. He's part of it. But this as a shot, it's a fair 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10 the most. Again, not always are you gonna shoot perfect 10s. Some shots you will love, some shots you will like, some shots you will accept. This is a shot that I will accept. This is a shot that I will like. Again, threes. For some reason, I tend to like threes. 1, 2, 3. They're all middle ground, surprisingly. You have the tugboat again in the background here. And you can see that the most interesting thing in this shot is not just the three of them, it's this long, beautiful shadow on this white sail. And then the contrast of the captain, the contrast of the chief, his dress versus the water. Yes, it's black and white. Yes, they're gray, but then there's contrast. Even his face, split down the middle, there's contrast. Same for this guy. Same for this guy. You know they're there. You can see them clearly. Versus the background, versus the sky, versus everything. Even the texture in the trees, in the palms. You can still see it. And this is a picture I like. A lot of times I get very emotional with the pictures. Because I remember the moments. Because they're not coincidences. I am there as a coincidence, but I don't shoot as a coincidence. This is a very basic shot. Very symmetrical, middle ground, leading line from here to there. The guy is kind of on an axis of his own. And then everything else is just symmetrical. It's just purely symmetrical. The only thing that's off is him. And then the contrast between this empty space and him being on this side. When you look, you see his face. You see him focused. You see him worried. And he really was. He was focused. I'm not sure he was worried, but he really was focused. They're always communicating. There's always someone on the other side. Sometimes there's a tugboat. And this is an honest man on his job. In his own environment. This is one of the images I like. I think if I had to retake this image, I'd probably use more depth to show his colleagues, to show this guy's face, to show this guy's face, and this guy's face. I think this was shot at f7, and because it was at a distance, I believe this was shot at 100mm on medium format, no, 200mm medium format, and probably because of that, it was very hard to show the rest of them. But then when I shot this, my main concern was him. Same thing, light coming from one side, split down the middle, shadows here, bright side of his face here, and then even when it's dressed, you still have this line. You have shadows. Shadows always create interest, but they're not dark, they're just shadows. Versus this, versus the light part of the image. And then his look. His look. Okay, this is one of the images that I really felt it when I shot it. And I was on a bridge. I waited for an hour until the boat would pass under the bridge. And I went through a pretty tough journey just to get to the bridge. And once I got to the bridge, there was a small, what do you call it, like a police station? Not even a police station, like just police security there. And they were stationed there just for security reasons. And if you've been to Egypt, you know you're not allowed to shoot, especially if you're going to fling around big cameras and big lenses. So, funny enough, when I went over the bridge, I got to talk to them, introduce myself. I tried to be nice, and they allowed me to stay there. They allowed me to shoot, and got a few shots from the bridge. This was by far my favorite, and it is again the lines. It is the lines. So you have one line, then you have this axis, then you have this line, and this line, and it all leads to them. I love how they're. Let me just delete this a little bit. I want to see the picture a little bit better. I love how they're working. I love their shadows, their environment, their focus, their dedication. And again, the shadows on the ground. It adds depth. You know where the sun is. You know how hot it is. You can see it. You can see it on their faces. You can see it everywhere. Even a sail. The shape of the sail. The shape of the shadow side of the sail. The shape of the lit side of the sail. This creates interest. This creates a picture. Yeah, just waiting for this. Wonder how long I've been talking. I need to check. Not long enough. Probably gonna post this as it is, and you get to choose. You get to choose how much of this you can watch. I'm not gonna choose for you. So this beautiful image, black background, completely black, people in white. You don't really know what they're doing. There's not a lot of symmetry, but you know they all belong together, and they all pop because of the dark background. This adds a lot of mystery to the image, a lot of uncertainty. But then most images are part of a set. So this, it's the same place, the same dam, the other tugboat. This guy is just waving to people who are usually up here, that are guiding the tugboat, guiding the sailboat itself inside, telling them where to stay, and showing them one by one the process of how it's getting filled with water again to this level, as I told you. And as you can see here, now the boat is a lot higher than when it was in the other picture, because it was within the process itself of the water being filled. Here it's almost at the top, if you can see the water level is. And this is the actual street level. And then the water on the other side here, it's pretty high versus behind. As you can tell, it's a basic shot. You see the environment, you see how things look, you see the guy, you see what he's doing, a little bit of shadow on the ground, a lot of contrast. Oh my god, how I love contrast. How I just love contrast. Same thing. Split a line down the middle of this picture. You have bright, and then you have dark with a little bit of specular highlights. And then you have the subject. Ah. And even the subject still has texture. Subject still has shadows. Shadows here, a little bit of shadow here. Pockets. And these pockets of shadows, they create interest. And after all of this, you go and see the focus of the image. It's this. Hard working hands. Constantly working hands. This is the image. Again, I love it when characters are just set up where they make sense in a frame. Sun seems to be coming from behind them, from this direction. And they're happy. You can see them clearly. You can see each and everyone's expression. It feels like home. It's one of the images I like. Just because of this. This. Black. Versus this little itsy bitsy zone of light. And then the action. If you see the line, that's the action. And then the rest is just purely symmetrical. Nothing to it. And I tend to always break it down in my head as I'm shooting it. This is actually how I saw it while I was shooting it. I see lines. I saw these lines. I saw these lines. I saw this center line. I just saw the action. It was there. It was happening. And I captured it. Even this line. See this? Shadow casted by his hand. I'm not going to stop at each and every one now, so I feel like this video is going to be very long, which I don't mind, but I'm sure you guys are going to get bored eventually. You see this? I'm not going to comment on this more than bright sky, bright dresses, but then skin tones. Almost dark, almost black, almost black, almost. You can barely see the details. Black, black. Now this guy has a little bit of details happening. I'm just gonna let you watch this. This reflection. Right in the middle between them, in the middle of this interaction. This shadow. And a scale. Where he is, where he is, where he ends, where he ends. You know. It adds up. This I like because I can see what shape is being created with shadows. If I outline it, this is the shape. Then you have a little bit of light here, a little bit. And then a lot of light everywhere else. This was a spree of the moment, basically. I'm lucky I caught this. It happened in a second. Again, I like verticals, being vertical. I like seeing all the lines standing up. And then this line, this shadow, is running with them. And they're running from their own shadows. Shadows are behind them. And although they're backlit, you can still see details here and here. I never saw their faces, but I bet you know they're happy. And you can sense their energy. Again, these are one of the images that I just love to draw with light. A lot of shadows, but then you have this, and you have this, a little bit of this. When you look closely, you can see the kid's expression, you can see the man's expression. And how they fill the space, how the movement is from up to down, how this line just guides up. This is very typical. This image wouldn't be this image without this character, and I believe I waited for him to come. Shadows are nice. Different pattern. Different lengths. And then this dark area is cornering off. So you have this and you have this. They're responding to each other. And then the rest is just this bench. And the writing's on the wall. This is another perspective for the other image. Here you can see more. Here you can see him. You can see him and the friends. This tells a lot more. You know the space, you know the area. Tells you where you are. When I shot this, I didn't think it was going to turn out like that. I have to say, this is not a coincidence. Because you can frame it however you want, you just point the camera and shoot, but then I chose this. And it's an easy one, but it's still a nice one. This is our last one for the day. And I think this was shot very early morning. It's a little bit of shake to it. It's a little bit blurry and out of focus. I love the flow of the water, the solitude and the isolation of him, the boats. It might not be the perfect picture, but it doesn't belong in 2024 when it was shot. No, actually this was shot in 2023. Wow. It doesn't belong in 2023 either way. But it's a shot that takes you there. Whatever this is. Whatever this is. This was actually a very nice place to be at. So, this has been the breakdown of first project, first episode. I really hope you liked it. I know some people don't like my pace or find it slow, but this is how I talk. This is how I want to talk. This is how I want to explain. I want this to be my pace. The world is already a very fast place. So I'd rather make this a comfortable space. This is why I'm not raising my voice. This is why I'm not giving you all the bursts of crazy energy. I want you to enjoy the space, to enjoy the art, to enjoy the craft, and to just feel safe. So until we meet again, stay safe.